Those of you who follow my video series will know that I have recently changed from using an old school 25 horsepower two-stroke to a modern 25 horsepower EFI Fourstroke. I may wonder why, as the Mariner ran faultlessly and gave me 12 years of great service. Perhaps I should say that I don't consider myself a casual weekend user who may have different ideas on the type of outboards, depending on their use. The points I raise in this video are only my opinions based on my real-life experience, so you are free to disagree based on your real-life experiences. I'm also not generalising about different outboards. I'm comparing my own 25 horsepower Mariner two-stroke with my own 25 horsepower Yamaha four-stroke. Before continuing with my comparisons, it's worth mentioning that at the turn of the millennium, it became illegal for manufacturers and dealers to sell outboards to recreational and leisure users that did not meet the new RCD standards of the time. In simple terms, the old school two-strokes were no longer available to buy new because they failed on 3 points. First, fuel consumption. Second, noise, and third, pollution and CO2 emissions. Of course, commercial users can still buy new two-stroke outboards that failed the RCD standards, but in truth few did, because as commercial users their business is to make money, and poor fuel efficiency is not a good way to maximise profits. Small boat owners like myself often prefer the small two-strokes because they are lighter to carry than equivalent four-strokes. However, for me, weight was not a consideration, as I keep my boat in a trailer and never need to carry the outboard. The Mariner incidentally weighed 53 kilograms and the new Yamaha weighs 60 kilograms, so relatively speaking, depending on the size of the outboard, weight is not such an important consideration now anyhow. I wondered if lifting the slightly heavier Yamaha outboard into shallow drive or tilt would be more difficult than the Mariner, but in fact I find it very slightly easier, possibly due to a better balanced head. This brings me to the only negative point I have with the Yamaha so far. The tilt-release lever is in an awkward position. It's very easy to operate, but when the outboard is tilted up, I can't see the lever. Initially I was fumbling around trying to find it, but now I'm used to it. I locate and operate it easily enough without the need to see it. The old Mariner was not ideal either. Although I could always see it, I had to lean right over his transom to operate it. Not ideal either, especially when you have an auxiliary outboard on the road. Initially I wondered if I could still keep the auxiliary outboard mounted on the transom, as the Yamaha head and cover is wider than the Mariner's head and cover. It's not a problem and I have full lock on both outboards. The Yamaha head and cover narrows down and is actually lower at the transom where it matters, which prevents any binding with the auxiliary. Another noticeable difference between the two outboards is I used to trailer with the Mariner in the down position, but found the Yamaha, possibly because of a longer skeg, needs towed in the tilt position, as it bottomed out as I drove onto the beach. The AV plate on both outboards run in the same position, which is just a fraction below the transom level. Both the Mariner 25 horsepower two-stroke and the Yamaha 25 horsepower four-stroke leave a lovely clean wake with little sign of drag or cavitation. Another obvious difference is the Yamaha's tiller is around 6 inches longer than the Mariner's, so I had to move my bench seat and console forward to compensate. The Yamaha also has a separate gear shift lever, whereas the Mariner's was inbuilt into its throttle control. I don't mind having either type of controls. So to summarise, the difference between size, shape and weight of the two outboards, a very little difference to me. I'm equally happy with either. However, when it comes to pollution, noise and fuel efficiency, the Yamaha 25 HP four-stroke is a clear winner for me. The Marner 25 horsepower needed a yank of the pull cord to start and much fiddling with choke and revs when in a cold start like this. Notice the two-stroke oil fumes billowing out. My neighbour at the last house complained about the fumes when I flushed the outboard out in the bucket, and I confess I made sure my own windows and doors were tight shut, as I didn't like the smell either. Surprisingly, they never once complained when I flushed my little 6 horsepower 4-stroke Yamaha outboard out. The outboard was very reliable, and the plug insulators were always a nice tan colour, so not oiled up or running rich. Even in a warm start and a nice calm day, I left a subtle blue cloud behind as I left the beach. In comparison, the new Yamaha 25 horsepower EFI Fourstroke is like a breath of fresh air. This is a cold start in a bucket at home. It's unfair to compare the effortless electric start with the Yamaha and the Marner yank start, as I could have easily fitted electric start to the two-stroke, but didn't think it was worth the money. What is obvious is it started very quickly and there is no choke or revs to fiddle about with to get it going. The manual does say to let it warm for 3 minutes before operating when a cold start, but that's nothing. There is also no obnoxious smells or fumes for my neighbours to complain about. Of course, the Yamaha, unlike the Marner, can also be flushed out without a bucket. Just connect the hose pipe to the inbuilt attachment and let the water run for 10 minutes and the job's done. You don't start the outboard, so it's a silent operation. The reason it can't be started is the impeller does not get flushed, so will run dry and cause issues. But it is a great time saver. Having covered the pollution from burnt fuel aspect, let's listen to the cold starting of the two outboards running in a bucket of water. The noise is night and day, and here we are running at sea. I'm using the same camera and recording from the same distance, so the noise is comparable. It's that much quieter, the wind and the water noise is more noticeable. Of course, you may say the Marner is louder because it's revving more, which is true in a way. That's because two-stroke outboards don't like running in a slow tick over, or the plugs can oil up and stall. The four-strokes take it all in their stride. I can even slip the Yamaha into gear at its slowest tick over speed, and it flawlessly crawls along for ages, without a sign of stalling, coughing, sneezing or backfiring, like the Marner two-stroke would after running so slowly for 10 minutes or more. Which is ideal for almost silently creeping up on wildlife such as this flotilla of puffins and razorbills. Or slow manoeuvres that require a reliable slow tick over without stalling, like this example of reversing carefully into Fingal's Cave in the island of Staffa. The Marner two-stroke just didn't cut the mustard at slow tick over. This next clip is of the Marner 25 horsepower, happily cruising at 18 miles per hour. It's revving its guts out at 3/4 throttle, so rather noisy. This clip is of a Yamaha 25 horsepower, happily cruising at 18 miles per hour, running nicely on 1/3 throttle. Yep, 1/3 throttle, so very much quieter and not stressing the engine. Oh, I do know two-strokes like high revs, although my ears don't. In this next clip, notice the throttle position is barely halfway open. Then I turn the camera to my phone GPS and it's reading 20.4 miles per hour. So it's an ideal cruising speed with a half open throttle. The throttle position at cruising speed is important because we all know two-strokes use more fuel than four-strokes. Some internet figures from manufacturers compare wide open throttle figures varying from 25 to 30% difference, and I don't doubt that. However, I noticed on long journeys with friends who also used 25 horsepower EFI Fourstrokes, they were almost 40% difference in fuel burn from my Mariner two-stroke. Quite a considerable difference. I presume it was because I was cruising at high revs while they were cruising at mid-revs. So full throttle comparisons are a bit tongue-in-cheek. I was always a bit miffed having to carry and pay for 100 litres of fuel while they took 60 litres on the same adventure as me. Last year I went round the island of Mull with my Mariner 25 horsepower outboard and used 90 litres of fuel. You can imagine my delight when I did the same journey this year, running in the Yamaha 25 horsepower EFI and used 55 litres. Over the 3-day adventure, I saved around £70 in fuel, plus another £10 in two-stroke oil. The top speed of the Mariner 25 horsepower two-stroke was 25 miles per hour in this boat. So far, I have not given the Yamaha 25 horsepower EFI Fourstroke full throttle runs as it's still running in, but it has touched 25 miles per hour, with more throttle still to go. So it is certainly no slower in top speed and could even be a tad faster. However, the Mariner 25 horsepower two-stroke accelerates a bit faster than the Yamaha. Not that that interests me, as I don't need fast acceleration on long-haul open-sea adventures. I've only had the Yamaha for 3 weeks and already estimate that it has saved me around £200 in fuel and oil savings, as I do use the boats almost every day. I calculate that with the cost of a new Yamaha outboard, minus the price I got for the Mariner, it will pay for itself in 4 years because of fuel savings. At the end of these 4 years, I will still have a good Yamaha four-stroke, whereas if I had kept a Mariner, I suspect it would be a very clapped-out 25-year-old outboard. Outboard reliability means a lot to me on my long runs round the Inner Hebrides. As such, I am much happier with a new Yamaha outboard than a 20-year-old Mariner, which has done a lot of miles. I have always serviced my outboards myself, both two-stroke and four-stroke, so know that for me the four-stroke is no different to service than the two-stroke. I have not serviced an EFI Fourstroke before, but foresee little difficulty in learning its ways. In truth, the basic annual service of oils, filters, plugs and impeller changes are identical. I find tappets and timing belts are easy to do too. They only take a little more time to service than a two-stroke, and time is something I have lots of. The Yamaha is now due its initial oil change for the first 20-hour service, so I've ordered the oils and will do it myself. I appreciate it may invalidate any future warranty claims. However, I did the same with my Yamaha 6 horsepower and it's almost done 500 hours with no issues. I have had numerous Yamaha motorbikes when young and again no warranty issues. So I'm willing to invalidate the warranty to do all the outboard work myself. Simply because if I paid a dealer to do all the servicing until the warranty expired, it would double the cost of the outboard. I appreciate not everyone will be as confident to do this as myself, but I have no issues in doing it. In fact, I'm looking forward to finding out how the EFI outboards work. So that covers all the reasons I sold the old Mariner 25 horsepower two-stroke. and bought the new Yamaha 25 horsepower EFI Fourstroke. For me, the only slight advantage of the old school outboard was slightly better acceleration, but that was heavily offset by much better fuel consumption, much quieter, so my head is not ringing after a full day sitting beside a noisy mariner, and it doesn't stink so much. Because I do a lot of miles on my boat, and with fuel now costing £2 per litre, I have absolutely no regret in selling on the Mariner. I hope you enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching.